What is up, guys? Frankie here once again. So I apologize for the absence. Leia and I visited Canada and we spent some time with family, so we didn't really have much time to do anything. And I did want to do a retro game hunting video while I was in Canada, but unfortunately the one big store that I had in my area, I visited twice and both times it was closed. So I don't know if it's closed down permanently or what, but either way it was really unfortunate because I really wanted to make a video there for you guys, but unfortunately we couldn't do that. So when we returned from Canada, Leia and I actually switched departments in our jobs. And so because of that, we've been doing a lot of training and our schedule has changed as we've shifted our work schedule 2 hours further, and we work half an hour later than normal. So we're doing 8.5 hours. So because of all this stuff, you know, it's been quite stressful and quite exhausting. So I haven't really found the time to record a video. So I am sorry for my absence. However, if you're new here, my name is Frankie. I live in Japan. Retro game hunting and collecting is one of my biggest hobbies, but this channel is dedicated to everything as well, such as life in Japan. I want to visit castles, I want to visit temples. There's lots of stuff I want to do here. So there's going to be a myriad of a bunch of content focusing around the retro game collection and, of course, my Japan life. So if that's something you enjoy, please consider subscribing to the channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment down below. Otherwise, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys my retro game collection finally. I know it's been a while, but a lot of stuff has happened, so we're finally getting to it. Hope you guys enjoy it. So if you guys know me, you know that my Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo DS is my main collection, as handheld is what I mostly grew up with, but I do have other stuff. So we're going to start with famicom on the console all the way up to about the GameCube era, and then after that I will start showing you my stuff from Game Boy all the way up to Nintendo DS, because after that is where I draw the line for retro. So yeah, that is what we are going to be doing today. But before we go showing you the games, I'm going to show you everything that's on mine and Leia's shelf first, so you will get to see everything that we have as a bulk. After that, I will be taking you through each game one by one with the camera facing down on my little table here where I showcase all my stuff. So it's going to be a pretty laid back and chill video, so if you want to grab something to drink or grab something to snack on, you might want to go do that now. Otherwise, I guess that's about it, so without further ado, let's jump into it. So first things first, we got Leia's stuff right here. The top of her shelf, she has her Nintendo Switch games, and then she's got her GameCube, her Wii, her N64 stuff, and then her Super Famicom, as well as just her Nintendo Switch. So on this backdrop, so this is what you guys usually see behind me in my videos, we have a Super Nintendo with some random games, N64, the Nintendo Wii, the Wii U, and then the Switch without its dock right now. This is just my secondary hacked Switch, so yeah. And then on this shelf over here, we basically just have the loose games that are ready to go whenever we want to play them. So this here is just a bunch of Super Nintendo and regular Famicom games. Here is all my spare Game Boy games, Game Boy Colors, and a couple Game Boy Advances in there, I think. I don't know, we'll go through them. And then here we have a lot of Super Nintendo games and some N64 games along with the controllers. So right here we just have my spare consoles. Got my Game Boy Color here, my Game Boy Advance, one of my Game Boy SSPs, new 3DS XL, my DS Lite, my Wonder Swan, and my PS Vita. And here are just the boxes that go with, along with some Dragon Ball figures. And so this shelf is basically just my Pokemon games in chronological order, except for the Scarlet and Arceus, which is on my backdrop. And as you can see, I'm starting to run out of space, so things are a bit cramped. You might be able to hear my cat. She's in heat. Get out of the way. Down here is just the rest of my Pokemon games. These are basically just the spin-off games, such as like Pinball, the trading card game, and then a bunch of the DS games like Mystery Dungeon, etc. And then the Switch games like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And then as we get lower, we just have a bit of a chaotic mess. This is just some DS games. And then right here we just have some Famicom and Super Famicom games. Over there, just some random games I still haven't put away, which is Harry Potter. And then we have my PS Vita games over here, along with the Game Boy Color that's waiting to go to whoever wins the contest. And then we have my Game Boy Color games and Game Boy DMG games, as well as my Game Boy Advance games here, along with some GameCube and stuff I still have yet to sort out and put away. I'm running out of space, as you can see on my shelves, so I'm going to need to get some more shelves. And then over here we have 3DS, we have some N64, and then as we go lower, I just got a bunch of stuff down here that I have yet to organize. They're just random Wii U games and such. Okay, what's up guys, Frankie here. So as you can see, we have the table set up here, so we're going to get into the games pretty quick. So it's just going to be a pretty straightforward top-down view of what I'm doing here. So if you want to grab a coffee, grab something to eat, maybe have a snack, that would be great. But yeah, before we jump into the box games, I'm going to just show you guys all my loose games really quickly. So we have an NES Dragon Ball Z game here. I'm not too sure the name of this one, as unfortunately I don't have the Japanese. But here is a cartridge. If you know what it is, then let me know. And then of course we have another Dragon Ball cartridge. This is a different series from this. I do know that. There's 3 NES Dragon Ball Z games and 3 Dragon Ball games on NES, I believe. Or sorry, Famicom. So we got these two here. And then we have this one, which is, I know this one is, I think it's like Gekishin Frieza or something like that. But this is a sequel, or the second one from this. So this is number 2 from that Dragon Ball game. And then we have Super Mario USA. This is actually a North American version of Super Mario Bros. 2 that Japan didn't get, as Super Mario Bros. 2 was called Super Mario Bros. Lost Levels in America. But the second one they deemed too difficult for North American audiences, so they rebranded a different game and turned it into Super Mario Bros. 2 for North America. And so this is actually where people like Shy Guy and Birdo come from, which is actually pretty interesting. So despite being rebranded from a different game, these characters are staples in Mario today, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so I picked up this one just loose because they're quite expensive in box. Next we have another Dragon Ball game. I'm not sure where this one falls in line exactly between this and this one. Judging by the cover art here, this one looks like a prequel to this one, because this one looks like it's got obviously King Piccolo and all that stuff, and then this here is the early Dragon Ball during the first series of episodes where Bulma's wearing that suit and etc. So this is probably the first one, and this is probably the second one. I would love to play these actually because there are English patches, so if you want to see me play these, let me know in the comment section down below. I can stream that. And then we have Dragon Ball Z3. So this is the third to this. So these three games are all part of a specific Dragon Ball Z series. I'm not too sure much about them, but I love Dragon Ball Z, and I've always wanted to play these games, so that will be amazing. And then next we have Tetris. This is just a loose copy of Tetris. There was no reason to buy this other than there was a bunch of games that were on sale for like three for $5 or something, and it was just, we couldn't figure out what to get for the third one, so we ended up buying a loose Tetris since it's one of those games you might just want to plug in real quick. Okay, so that's all for the regular Famicom game. And then as for N64, because there's just two here, I'm going to show you these guys real quick. So yeah, this is just Paper Mario, and then this is Yoshi's Cookie, I believe? Yoshi Sutori. Oh no, Yoshi's Story, that's right, duh, I know this. So that's Yoshi's Story. And then for Super Famicom here, we do have a few games I'll show you real quickly. So first off, we have Super Mario World. Did I hear a child screaming in the background? You guys might... Is everybody okay? There's some kids screaming outside. It's worrying. Anyways, so this is Super Mario World. You guys know this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I played this game to death as a kid, in Canada anyways, on the North American version, or the Canadian version. Love that game. And then, of course, we have Dragon Quest VI. There's no real reason to buy this. I never played this game myself, but it was, again, a third game we needed in the 3 for $5, so we bought a crap ton. Next up, we have Dragon Ball Z. This is number 3, so this is the third in a series that is on the Super Nintendo here. And then we have Hyper Dimension. So this is probably the only game that I was really aware of growing up that Japan got that we didn't, just because I used to see ROMs in it on the very, very early internet, like we're talking like 2002, that sort of era. So I always came across this game, but it was in Japanese and I never really had the ability to play it. But the box version of this goes for something like $120 nowadays, and I still have yet to pick it up because I just never have the cash on hand when I'm ready to buy it. And then this loose copy was cheaper than the rest of them. This was only like $5, I believe, but usually they were like 12 to 15. This one was just on sale. I'm not sure why. There didn't seem to be any real damage. I think it was just sitting for a while and they were trying to get rid of old inventory. So I picked up this immediately. And then we have this. I also have this box as well. This is just another Dragon Ball Z game, and unfortunately I cannot read, but this one has the insignia of number 3. And then this one doesn't have any, so I'm not too sure where this one falls in the line of things, but there is that. Alright, so that's it for the older loose games. So now we're going to get to the Game Boy, which, if you guys know me, this is my primary system that I collect for is Game Boy, because Game Boy was a big part of my life growing up as I was a foster kid. I couldn't bring, you know, game systems with me in a TV, but I, of course, could bring my Game Boy, so that's what I used to escape from the crappy world. So Game Boy is my main. That is why I collect for it. So first, let's just jump into this. So first we just have a loose copy of Pokemon Pinball here. I should actually check and make sure there's no battery. Okay, there's no battery. So this here was another game that was 3 for $5, and I figured this is something I'd want to throw in the bin when I want to play so I don't have to disturb my box copies. Yes, I actually have 2, but I'll show you why. And then next up we have Pokemon Crystal. I have 2 box copies of this and then 1 loose. This loose one I just got for $5. One of them has an alive battery and then 2 others are dead. Which I think this one is my dead copy. I have my alive one in my Game Boy Color, but I do have 2 box versions of it. I just ended up finding one that was better condition, so I decided to pick up a second. And next up, we have Tetris. So as you can see, this is just $3 at Book Off. It was another game I just wanted to throw in because you don't even need to read Japanese to play Tetris. As long as you know where you're going in the menus, it's a really easy game to play. So I did play this a lot on Game Boy back in the day. I remember playing it against the streetlights in my old bedroom, and it was kind of annoying because my streetlight would flicker on and off, so it would stay on for like 60 seconds and then turn off for like 5, so it was kind of annoying, but I distinctively remember playing against that light. So next we have Super Mario Rando 3, which is the third version of Super Mario Land, but this is Wario Land. So this is a sequel to the second one, but it's kind of its own series at this point. That's the first one. Next up we have Donkey Kong Country 3 Game Boy Edition. So this one is just another one that I wanted to throw in the box because I do love these games. And then we have Super Mario Land 2. So this is the second version of this running series, but this is the second final version with Mario in it for the Super Mario Land series as far as I know. Then we have Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color. Again, this was just another throw in the box one in case I ever want to pick this up and play. And then of course we also have Donkey Kong Land. So this is Donkey Kong 2. There's so many Donkey Kong games on Game Boy Color, and whatever. I have most of them, I believe. Most of them boxed anyway. Next up we have, oh yeah, Link's Awakening DX. So this is the Game Boy Color version of, actually I might as well pull this up right now. This is a Game Boy Color version of this original Game Boy game where they enhanced the graphics a little bit basically and then re-released it. Both of these are very expensive and quite difficult to find, so I just grabbed them loose when I could. That way they're there if I need them. So yeah, there's these two. Link's Awakening. Next up, we have Wario Land 3. Actually, scratch that. First, next up, we have Wario Land 2, and then Wario Land 3. So this is Super Mario Land 4, Wario Land 2, and then Super Mario Land. But I don't think they use that insignia at this point, or that subtitle. So this is just Wario Land 2, Wario Land 3 in their own right. And then for Game Boy Advance games, I have a random copy of Super Mario Kart for Game Boy Advance. This is an American game. I picked this up in Canada when I visited. Not intentionally, but it came with a bundle. So this is just the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe on Game Boy Advance. I kind of want to play this just because, you know, I can read it, and I never played it before. And then we have Nicktoons Unite. Again, this was another thing that came with a bundle. And then here's one of the games I targeted that was in the bundle, which is Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury. One of the best Dragon Ball Z games of all time, in my opinion. This one and the prequel, Legacy of Goku 2, actually. But we don't talk about Legacy of Goku 1. So I do have Legacy of Goku 1, and I do have, actually I'll pull this up right now, and I did find this. I found this in a store here in Japan, and it said America on it, and I was like, oh, and I looked at it and I realized that it was Legacy of Goku 1 and 2 bundled in one game. But I also do have number 1. I don't know where it is, but I do have it somewhere. Just have to take my word on it. I don't have it in this pile, unfortunately. But then Boo's Fury. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite games of all time for Game Boy Advance. I've played this to death. I recently picked up a reproduction copy from AliExpress just so I could play this, but now I have the genuine copy, so that's awesome. But I completed 100% of the game in 7 hours, I believe. I got everything completed. And then, of course, the gems. So this is Pokemon Sapphire. It's in very rough condition, as you can see by the sticker here, but it was $50, and most of these are quite more expensive than that, so I figured I'd pick it up. And then I'm talking Canadian dollars, by the way, so like $40 American. I just needed a copy of it, and it was there while I was in Canada, so I figured I'd pick it up. Then finally, for Game Boy Advance loose games, we have Pokemon Emerald. So this one is actually nearly mint condition. I was super happy with this. I mean, you might be able to see some micro scratches on the shine of the label here, but the label itself is absolutely mint, so I'm very glad to have this. This was also in the bundle where I got this, Boo's Fury, those two other games, and a Game Boy Advance SP with a travel case for about $200 US, but I will put these away now. Alright, so now we are moved on from the loose games, and first I'm going to show you my two Famicom or NES games. So I am a 1992 baby, so I mostly grew up with Super Nintendo, not really the Famicom. However, I do want to collect for it. I've just been getting the other games out of the way that I do want to get immediately, but I did pick these up during my adventures. So this is Dragon Ball Z Gekishen Frieza, I believe, like I mentioned before. This one's complete in box. It is actually in pretty decent condition, which is why I picked it up. It was relatively cheap from what I've otherwise seen, so that's why I picked it up when I did. This one I probably shouldn't have bought, but it was the first one I seen when I ended up buying it. And I was like, ooh, I want this, but now I've seen other ones that are in much better condition. Mind you, this was like really cheap. This was like $6 or something, when normally these ones go for a bit more than that. Or I think they go for 20 bucks at this point, I'm not sure. And then next up, yeah, these are my only two American Super Nintendo games, but I did find these here in Japan. You've probably seen them a couple times when I was looking at one of the stores here on my episodes. I was always tempted to buy them, and then finally I just saw, you know what, we have a Super Nintendo now, because I do have a Canadian Super Nintendo. I brought one back with me. So I figured we'd just say screw it and pick these up. This is Yoshi's Island. Not super good condition. As you can see, this tongue has trouble staying in. It's in pretty rough condition, but this was the equivalent of about $60, and these usually retail for, or I'm pretty sure these ones go for about $150 US. I could be totally wrong, so don't quote me on that. But it was a good deal in its own right, despite the condition. The box itself looks fine. It's just this part has been opened up a million times, so it's quite quite rough. And then we have Super Mario Kart, which is in a little bit better condition, you know, aside from the little bit of wear and tear on these corners here, which is quite normal. And if you don't know what this game is, this is basically the first Mario Kart game in the entire franchise, and basically kicked off the kart obsession that every single other video game developer has attempted to imitate since the beginning of time. Well, since the beginning of this time anyways. Fantastic game. I definitely recommend it if you haven't played it. Yeah, it uses its Nintendo Super Effects chip inside of the Super Nintendo in order to give you a faux 3D look by scaling the map around you and rotating it when really your character's stationary, but it gives the illusion of movement. Pretty cool. So yeah, there's Mario Kart. Next up, we got another pile here. So this is Super Nintendo. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm not too sure what this Dragon Ball game is. And as you can see, it looks like a side-by-side fighting game here. Quite typical arcade game for this era. I do really want to give these a shot because there's so many awesome Dragon Ball Z games that we really missed out on, unfortunately, in North America. And then we have this other one. Okay, so this one has to be the first one because as I'm looking to my left here, this is number 2. So it looks to be 1, 2, and 3 right here. So 1, 2, 3. And then we have Dragon Ball Z, but for some reason it's Dragon Ball. I'm not too sure what this is. It does look like some weird sort of isometric top-down RPG game. I am quite interested to give this one a shot, but this one's in pretty decent condition, and it was pretty cheap, so that's why I picked it up. And then, I don't even know what this is, but I found it, and I thought it was hilarious, because I've never seen a Mario game that utilizes the Super Scope. I didn't even know this existed. The condition is relatively good, aside from this really small crease bend at the bottom, if you guys can see it. The box is just in super, super immaculate shape. I got to give this a shot sometime, but I do not have the Super Scope, so that'll be in the future. So this here is Bomberman, and as you can I wonder if you can see that with light. It's got this big crease down the middle. This was a pickup by Leia. I'm not really too sure what this is, because it doesn't look like a normal Bomberman game to me. It looks sort of like a Puyo Puyo or some sort of puzzle game. So yeah, it's Bomberman. This is Super Tetris 3, so this is pretty straightforward as to what this is. It's just Tetris, but it's a little more super than the last because they try to make Tetris more interesting than it is. But yeah, this is another Leia pickup. Pretty good condition. Next up, we have this Kirby game. So I don't know much about this, but it is an isometric 3D game, as you can see here. You basically walk around in a faux 3D environment, or roll around, I guess, as Kirby. I'm not too sure. I don't know how this works, but I've seen gameplay of this before. It's quite interesting, quite unique anyways for the Kirby formula. And then we have Donkey Kong Country 3 with Dixie Kong, and that's really it. That's the only character in this game. So yeah, this game is really, really awesome. It is a sequel to Donkey Kong Country 3, one of the best games of all time in my opinion. This is severely underrated, and it was unfortunately missed by many because the N64 had been out at this point. So that's unfortunate, but this game in itself is actually super creative. The music is great. It's an amazing game. I've played this through many times as growing up as well. Next we have this. So this is funny to me because the artwork reminds me of Card Captor for some reason, but this is actually Puyo Puyo, so it's actually just some sort of puzzle game. I'm not too sure how these characters work into it. Puyo Puyo is really popular here in Japan. The only reason I know that is because it's here Puyo Puyo. Yeah, so I don't know. I've never played them in my life, but my wife Leia has, so she picked it up. This is hers. Next up we have, I believe this is Children of Mana 2. It's a Mana game. I just don't know which one it is. Trials of Mana, Children of Mana, I'm not too sure. There's not even any screens on the back to show you what the gameplay is like, although it is an action RPG. I did play a couple of these growing up. I love these games. These are fantastic RPGs. So if you've never played these, I suggest checking them out. And then next up, we have this kid. I have no idea what this game is. I don't know what is he doing. He's a ballerina, and then there's this kid with a thing in his hand. I don't know what this is. It looks like some sort of side-scrolling, very 90s style side-scrolling fighting game, possibly? Or not, I don't think it's a fighting. I think it's just a side-scrolling adventure game similar to Mario, but just with this kid and the ballerina man. I have no idea. But yeah, so there's that. Leia picked that up. And then next we have Super Mario All-Stars. So this is basically Nintendo going back and recreating every single Famicom game of Mario, and then making them looking much better on the Super Nintendo. And this was fantastic. I loved this game as a kid. And it's a real shame because the new Super Mario 3D All-Stars is an absolute gut punch, because they took those 3 games and basically just made crappy emulation ports and then sold it to us for $80. This was great. The new one sucks. So yeah, that is Super Mario All-Stars. And next up we have Yoshi's Cookie. So this is the game I said earlier accidentally. This is just basically a puzzle game. I think my grandma played this. Somebody in my family played this, but it wasn't me. But I do remember seeing it. And then Boxed Super Mario World. This is my favorite Mario game of all time, second being really close, which would be Mario Odyssey, the newest one, funny enough. And this game is just amazing. You guys have to go back and play this, and if you haven't played it, you really have to. This is basically the perfect Mario game because it controls so incredibly, even by today's standards, because we all know that old games, they took time to get to where they need to be now in terms of controls, but these ones control super tight. Fantastic game. But now I'm going to clear off this table and get some more games out, so hold on one moment. Actually, hold on, I forgot about 2 more that are sitting on my shelf. So this is Super Mario Kart, which I already showed you, but the North American version. This is just the Japanese version. Again, what kicked off the gigantic kart racing game craze was this game right here. And then I think this is Super Pikurosu. So this is, oh yeah, so Mario no Super Picross. Super Picross, yeah. So I don't really know what Picross is. I just know it's a Japanese puzzle game, and I've never played it before, but if there's a Mario variant of it, I guess. I do have one of these on Game Boy, I believe, so we'll get to that when we get there. But yeah, so Super Mario Picross. Okay, we are back. Sorry, I had to pull out a new chunk of games here. So now we are going to be jumping into N64, so I'll give you guys a run through of that. So this is Pokemon Stadium. This is the first Pokemon. This one wasn't released in North America. This was actually exclusive to Japan and only featured, I think, 60 Pokemon in it. And the version that we got, which is number 1, is actually Japan's number 2. And then their number 3 is our number 2, so it's a bit complicated. But yeah, so this is the first one. This is a big box because it came with the Game Boy pack, I believe. This lets you plug your Game Boy games into your controller so you can import Pokemon into the game itself. Next up, we have a big box of Star Fox 64. I'm guessing this just comes with a Rumble pack. I don't remember if the Rumble pack is in here. You know what, let's have a look-see. Aha, yes, so there is the Rumble pack in here, but the game is not in the box at the moment. So this is the Star Fox. This is actually supposed to be in here. So let's just shove that in there. So yeah, I never played Star Fox growing up, but I did pick this up because it was the first big box that I'd seen, and I do know that these games are extremely iconic and loved, so I figured I'd pick this up. Yeah, Star Fox 64. Next up, we have Pokemon Stadium 2. So like I mentioned, this is actually North America's Pokemon Stadium 1. And this one does include the entire roster, 151 Pokemon from this generation. And yeah, it has the same ability to import Pokemon as it shows right here. And yeah, so if you guys ever played Pokemon Stadium 1, this is basically that. Fantastic game. We all loved it. Next up, we have Pokemon Snap. Now this absolutely annoys me because it has this really weird box. As you can see, it's not quite normal sized. It's really annoying. Actually, you know what? Let me raise the camera a little bit here. Hold up 1 second. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I raised up the camera a little bit further up as far as it can go anyways on the tripod here. So this is, as you can see, it's just a little bit weird shaped, which absolutely annoys me. But this is the single only box version that I have found of this, and this was found in Osaka. Leia and I had been looking for this for ages, but no matter where we went, we could not find this boxed. This is basically just a Pokemon picture-taking game. You just go along some rails and you take some photos. You can throw apples and stuff at them to make them trigger specific animations. I used to love this game as a kid as well. I did play the crap out of this. And yeah, fantastic game. Next up, Diddy Kong Racing, the true only competitor to Mario Kart in my eyes. And it's a shame that we haven't had any other ones. Basically, it took the formula of the Mario Kart and just totally expanded it by giving it its own sort of adventure mode and a hub world that you actually get to drive around in. And it had boats, planes, and cars, which Mario Kart does do now. But yeah, fantastic game. If you've never played this, I really suggest it because it is awesome. And then we have Hey You Pikachu, the boxed version, or the box game you can find everywhere for like 100 yen. If you don't know what this is, basically this came with a really low quality microphone and you did really terribly heard voice commands to Pikachu and it would kind of listen, and it's kind of a way to interact with them. I don't really know how to interact with Pikachu in fluent Japanese, so if we can get an English copy, that'd be awesome. I'd love to try it out. I do have the mic. And finally, this is actually the first N64 game I picked up in Japan. Oh, it's still got its book off sticker here. As you can see, it was only 500 yen. So here we go. This is Pokemon Stadium 3 in Japan, or Pokemon Stadium 2 for us. But yeah, this game was amazing for its time. I absolutely loved it, and the animations of this are stellar when you compare them to modern Pokemon games, like especially Sword and Shield, where they actually take the time to animate every single fiber of the Pokemon's body. But nowadays they just don't because there's too many, I guess. So yeah, fantastic game. Pokemon Stadium number 2, or 3 in Japan. Okay. Next up, we have Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. There are 2 boxed versions of this, I believe. One without this red section on the box and one with. I think Leia just bought the cheapest one, or the one that was better condition. I'm not too sure. But yeah, this is Majora's Mask. So this was a sequel to Ocarina of Time. This is the first true successor to any Zelda game that follows the same link, which is pretty cool. The first one, Ocarina of Time, everybody should know this game. It's one of the best games of all time. I've played through this many, many times. And Majora's Mask, which I've actually never fully completed, and I really want to pick up the 3DS version so I can. This one I couldn't complete as a kid, but obviously I went back to it as an adult and I was like, oh my god, why was I so stupid? It's quite easy. But yeah, Majora's Mask was a real trip. It is a very dark game. It's got a very unique atmosphere that's unique to almost any game. Great game. Definitely love it. And then we have this. we have this guy, and there's a mouse, and that's all I can tell you. This is another weird game that Leia picked up. As you can see by the art here, I actually, you know what, I can't even determine what kind of game this is, but there's some yokai, I guess, or Japanese demons. What is this, Leia? Leia shook her head. She has no idea. So I don't even know what this is, but if you do, let me know in the comment section down below. Next up, we have Super Mario Kart 64. So this is the long-awaited sequel to that very first one that I mentioned that kicked off the series. And this was a very interesting game. This is, I think, the first time they gave Yoshi a noise, because Yoshi didn't have a voice up until after this game. So it just made a really weird noise. And that's, for some reason, the sound they associated with Yoshi before they gave him a voice. But yeah, so this is pretty straightforward. It's another kart racing game where you get power-ups as you go, and you get to battle it out with your friends, and you get to smack them in the back with a spiky blue turtle shell that ends all friendships. Yeah, great game. Okay, next up. This is the rest of the N64 games, I think. So we have Kirby 64. I've never played this myself, but it's just another game that tried to capitalize on the new 3D era of gaming. And so there was a Kirby 64. I don't know if it's side-scroller or faux 3D maybe, similar to Paper Mario, how there's a little bit of backwards and forward depth while going sideways. I'm not too sure. But Leia loves Kirby, so this is one of her pickups. Next, we have Banjo-Kazooie. So this is the first of 2 Banjo games that are super underrated. And actually, there's a spiritual successor to these games, and they're called Yooka-Laylee. So those are they're pretty cool, I guess. But nothing beats the classic Banjo-Kazooie. Unfortunately, Rare is now owned by Microsoft, so we'll probably never see a really good Banjo game again. But yeah, Banjo. Hopefully you've played this at some point, because it is amazing. Next up, we have the collectathon known as Donkey Kong 64. So, funny enough, this game I mostly associate with my grandma because she picked up an N64 alongside us, and she just absolutely 100%ed this game, which was hilarious because, you know, that's my grandma. She didn't even play games, and then all of a sudden she just got into this, like, Donkey Kong 64, and she's one of those people that when she plays the game, she tilts really hard left and right when she's moving. It's pretty hilarious, but yeah, so I have strong memories of my grandma playing this game and going over to her house, and she's telling us, "Don't touch it, you'll mess up my save." It's a really good game. I've played it myself, of course. Everybody has it at some point in their lives. Oh yeah, Donkey Kong 64. Next up, we have Bomberman. Again, oh, this is actually Bomberman 2. I thought it was going to be Bomberman 64. Does it have any 64 numbers on it? Nope, just this one. So yeah, this is just a, I think this is an actual Bomberman-style game from the normal Bomberman-style gameplay. But this is for N64. I didn't play these growing up, but Leia did, so this is one of her pickups. But yeah, Bomberman. Next up, we have Super Smash Bros., the first and one of the biggest, gigantic fighting game franchises of all time. Again, it's another franchise that Nintendo kind of started, doing a sort of crossover collaboration of a fighting game with everybody, and then everybody attempted to imitate it. And for good reason, too, because these games are super amazing. I think, yeah, so it shows on the back here, there's only 12 available characters back in the day. That's hilarious. Compared to now, I think there's like 80, maybe even more. And so yeah, this is what kicked it off. Super Smash Bros. You know, it's the only game that lets you fight Pikachu to Mario and Samus and Link all in one go. So yeah, you know what? I'm not even going to assume nobody's played this. You've played this. Next up, we have Mario Party 3, 2, and 1. This is Mario Party again. Sorry, you can see my circle light in the thing here. The lighting sucks in my room, so this is what I got to do. So yeah, Mario Party 1, Mario Party 2, Mario Party 3. Each iteration just basically features new boards and some new characters and some new mini games. But we've all had fun with these growing up. These are great. Nintendo basically launched the party game style format into the mainstream. So again, everybody tried to imitate this formula, and nobody really super succeeded. And Nintendo's basically hold the party game crown still, even today, with the newest Mario Party. So that's how it goes. But yeah, Mario Party 1, 2, and 3. I believe these are the only 3 that are on Nintendo 64. Oof. Okay, so next up we are doing GameCube because I'm getting through the console games before I move on to handheld. And Game Boy is my primary collection, so I'm going to show you guys that last. So first off, we have a few GameCube games here. These ones are mine, and then we have a big stack over here that are Leia's as she collects more for the GameCube, but first we'll start off with mine here. So first off, I should put this over here so I don't spoil. So this is Naruto Clash of the Ninja. GameCube games in Japan are a bit weird. They're in like a sleeve and then a see-through plastic game. Wait a minute, this is made by Tomy? That's funny, I did not know that. I'm just thinking of the company that makes those little plastic Pokemon figures. But yeah, so this is basically a really simple 1v1 style fighting game that's in the Naruto universe. I did play this a lot back in the day with my friend Ben, and this was very early into the North America's Naruto run, so this doesn't go very far into the series, but yeah, so Naruto Clash of the Ninja. Classic. So next up we have this Mega Man Battle Network game. I'm not really too sure, I've never played this, but I did play basically all the Battle Network games on Game Boy. or Game Boy Advance anyways, so I didn't know this existed, and when I found it, I figured I'd pick it up. Oddly enough, it was in Osaka, but it was in this weird store that had adult entertainment, but then like 4 or 5 games in the front, which was really, really strange. Of course, I seen the games, and I walk in, and I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought it was, but there were some, so I grabbed this. It's the only time I've seen it, so I figured I would. Next up, we have Pokemon Colosseum, and unfortunately, I don't have Colosseum 2, because it goes for a lot of money here in Japan. I don't know why, but so I picked up number 1. This is the best condition of the bunch. It's pretty good. I did rent this as a kid, but I didn't play too much into it. So this would actually be a really good game for me to experience together with you guys in stream for the first time. That'd be awesome. So let me know if that's something you want to see. Oh, okay. Well, that's unusual. So next up, we have Pokemon Colosseum again. Apparently I have 2 copies of this. I had no idea. I must have bought one a long time ago and then forgot about it. The other one's in better condition, but okay, that's kind of funny. So now I have 2. Next up, we have Digimon World. I think this is Digimon World 4. I'm not too sure, but I do remember this is a weird game because Digimon had swords. I did play this growing up as well. I love the Digimon World franchise and the Digimon World series. I love Digimon as a whole, to be honest, and I played a lot of Digimon games, and I actually do got to get into the new one that just released on Switch, which is an American/international version of a Japanese release for the 3DS. But yeah, Digimon. I'm not sure which one it is. This says Digimon X, but I'm pretty sure it was Digimon World 4. And then we have Pokemon Box. I unfortunately do not have the cable with it. The cable versions with the bigger box go for quite a lot of money, so I just figured I'd get this while I could. Basically, this was just a storage expansion. So nowadays we have, through the cloud, we have Pokemon Home and Pokemon Bank, or I guess Pokemon Bank is actually ending this month, or it's already ended, I'm not too sure. But back in the day, we had this. This was our way of managing Pokemon outside of the main series games. So you could actually, I believe you can back up your Pokemon to your GameCube memory card, and then you could send them back to yourself on a different save file, so that is really awesome. Okay, so we have Tetris Worlds. Again, more attempts to make Tetris cooler than it already is. They don't need to, but they really want it to be cooler, so there it is, Tetris Worlds. Next up, we have Pikmin. This is a really unusual game. Leia played it quite a bit, and she seems to enjoy it. And I believe they just recently announced the 4th one, so that's pretty cool. She's probably going to end up playing that. She's looking at me nodding very passionately, so I assume so. Yeah, so here's Pikmin. Next, we have this chibi robot game. You don't have the box part, like the sleeve. Oh, so Leia doesn't have the sleeve for this, but this is a chibi robot game. I don't know much about it, but I do know it's a cult classic. It's got a lot of devoted fans in the franchise, and Leia actually does have a chibi robot amiibo somewhere in the house. I don't really know what this game is. I believe it's a unique platformer. That's all I really know about it, but yeah. Next up, we have Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. So if you guys don't know what this is, you should, but it's another Zelda game. But it came right after Majora's Mask, and people were expecting the new 3D system to have this really dark Zelda game that they initially showed at a Nintendo World conference back in the day. And then they came out with this, and people are like, wait, what? Cartoon Zelda? What's going on here? But even so, this game is really, really good, and it did not deserve the hate that it got, but, you know, looking back in hindsight, everybody loves this game, so hopefully we get a remake of this soon. That'd be awesome. So this was Super Smash Bros. Melee. So this was the sequel to the 64 version, but this is on GameCube. It featured more characters, more worlds, better graphics, and this is even the go-to version of the game for most people, as this is when the controls were basically perfected. Some things have changed throughout the time, but this is probably considered the favorite by most. The 64 was a good start, but it was quite rough around the edges, but this one was basically perfect the way it was. And then next up we have WarioWare. This is like another WarioWare game, which is just a bunch of strange mini games where you pick band-aids off or pick your nose or do something weird. But yeah, WarioWare is a really strange franchise. I used to play it on the 3DS, and this is one on the GameCube that I've never seen before. But Leia picked this up because she is a big fan of this franchise. So yeah, that's Leia's. Here is Super Mario Brothers 4. Mario Brothers, what am I talking about? This is Super Mario Party 4. So this is the fourth in the series that started on the 64 that I showed you guys earlier. And then here is the same game, but twice, because Leia found one without a sleeve and then one with a sleeve, and then she ended up buying the one with the sleeve afterwards, so she has 2 copies of this. And then next up we have Mario Party 5, which is the 5th of the Mario Party games. Kind of nothing to say here. It's pretty straightforward. It's the 5th in the party games of Mario. And then here's the 5th again, because Leia did the same thing twice. But that's okay, we all have 2 versions of some games for some reason. And then there is Mario Party 6. So this one comes with a microphone, it looks like. And she does have the big box that includes the microphone. that plugs into the memory card slot. Hey, that's interesting. And I guess it includes mini games that involve you blowing into the mic or talking into the mic. I'm not too sure. Mario Party for me, I only played the N64s. I never played any of the newer ones, so I don't know much about this game. But it's Mario Party 6. It's probably just expanded upon the usual Mario Party. And then next we have Mario Party 7. And this time she doesn't have 2 of it, so that's awesome. This is the 7th in the series. And I believe Mario Party 8 is on Wii. I'm not too sure, but there's a lot of these games. That's actually kind of crazy looking back at it. And then the last chunk of GameCube games. So we have Super Smash Bros. Melee again, because Leia found one in better condition. Oh my gosh, we are just obsessed. So yeah, we are game nerds here, as you can see. This one is some wear and tear on it. I don't know if you can see in the reflections, but this one's in much better condition than this one, so she bought a second. Yeah, we have a bit of a problem, but we love our video games. And then there is The Incredibles. I think she bought this because it was only like $1 or $2, and this was actually at the store we visited just last time we went out looking for games really quickly. So I've never played this myself, neither has she, but she bought it because she likes The Incredibles and it was really cheap. Next we have Mario Kart Double Dash. So this game I really wanted to play growing up, and I only had 1 or 2 opportunities playing it at a friend's house. But of course I was a big Mario Kart fan because I did play it on the N64. So yeah, I never really experienced too much of this game, but I do know that it's really good. It's a very unique game with backing a second player on your back and having them can do their own thing while you do the driving. It's pretty cool. And then we have Wario World. So I didn't even know this game existed, but I guess it's another Wario World game, meaning it's a platformer or maybe a 3D platformer similar to Mario 64. I'm not too sure. It looks like Wario here is grabbing some green guy and then spinning him, similar to how Mario knocked out Bowser in the N64. Yeah, I don't know. Didn't even know this existed until this moment. Cool. And then we have Luigi's Mansion. I never played these myself growing up because I'm not a fan of the genre, and I'm not a big Luigi guy. But yeah, these are basically games where you go in haunted places, and I believe your entire goal is to clear it of ghosts, I think. So yeah, it's a very unique game, just never was mine specifically growing up, but Leia loves these and she really wants to play this, so she's going to soon. And then we have the best for last, Super Mario Sunshine. So this is a really unique game, also quite controversial, similar to Wind Waker, which is kind of GameCube's theme, is they did a lot of left field things. This one being they gave Mario this water contraption on its back, and so it removed some of the normal controls, such as a long jump, in favor for using this like turbo engine on your back as a jetpack or just squirting it as a weapon. Quite interesting. I do have this on 3D All-Stars, but I was really peeved off that Nintendo didn't make it 60 FPS, so I only ended up playing a little bit of it recently. But I did play this a lot on the real GameCube back in the day, and this is a fantastic game. So if you haven't played this, I really suggest you do. I think that is it for GameCube. So now we are going to get into my main collection. Get something to drink. Take a bathroom break. Intermission. Okay, we're getting into it. Okay guys, we are back. Sorry, it is the next day. Actually, I had to take a little bit of a break because there was so much talking and recording. So now we are going to jump into the Game Boy games. So let's get started. Alright, so here's some Game Boy DMG games really quickly that are in the small box. So this is some sort of Tamagotchi game. I honestly don't really know what this is, but I see it at every single book off I go to for like 198 yen. So I was like, you know what? Whatever, the box is in like a C condition. I might as well just get it. It's $2, why not, right? And then we have Yoshi's Cookie, I believe. Yoshi no Cookie, yeah, so that's Yoshi's Cookie. This is just a puzzle game similar to the Yoshi's Cookie one that I showed you guys on the Super Nintendo. And then, of course, we have Super Mario Land. This is the first in the Super Mario Land series, followed shortly afterwards by the Wario Land series, but this is the first. It's in a small Game Boy box. Unfortunately, I don't have protectors for this size of Game Boy games. I still haven't found any, so when that day comes I will. But otherwise, yeah, great game. And then we have Dragon Ball Z. Unfortunately, I have a bit of a crease here on the top of the box, which kind of sucks, but this is the only one that I'd seen at the time, and it was pretty cheap. I can't remember now how much. It was 20% off because of the crease, so I figured I'd just pick it up while I could. I have no idea what sort of gameplay this is. I didn't even know this existed until I moved here, but yeah, Dragon Ball Z. So here is Pokemon Pinball. As you can see, this is in the worst condition ever. I think I found this for like $5, and I had not seen a box copy up until this point. So I was like, okay, you know what? Might as well pick this up while I have the opportunity. But then I ended up finding a really nice near mint condition box here. There isn't a crease or a crinkle in sight. This box is in amazing condition. So yeah, I have two, but one has been sat on by somebody probably. Next up, we have these two games here, which you guys probably saw me pick up in an episode. This is some sort of Bandai game. or sorry, Hudson Soft game, and it's some sort of sun and star version. Don't really know what they were, but they basically imitated Pokemon's formula of making two different versions of the same game with probably minimal differences. So it really piqued my interest. So I figured I'd pick them up because they were $10 a piece. It's kind of funny because in the screenshot here, it kind of looks like Pokemon, the same character and everything, almost. I don't know what it is, but I have it. Then we have the sequel to that Super Mario Land. This is Super Mario Land 2 and the 6 golden coins. Box is in C+ condition, not super good, but it was pretty cheap. So of course I picked it up when I found it and had the opportunity. This was one of the glass case games because these are, I guess, quite expensive nowadays. So they're usually in the glass case. Yeah, Super Mario Land 2. And then we have Harry Potter and I think this is the first one. This has to be the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone. Just the Japanese version anyways. I haven't played this myself, but I do know that this is a really, really good RPG that is very different from normal Harry Potter games, and so it's actually a cult classic and loved by a lot of people, so I decided to pick it up. However, being an RPG in Japanese, there's not much I can do in the way of playing it because there's so much text. But yeah, Harry Potter. So, next up we have Pokemon Trading Card GB. This is in okay condition. Not the best, but if you don't know what this is basically an RPG based off of the trading card game. This was released in the 90s. I played this quite a bit as a kid, but I didn't really have the brain power to understand how to play the trading card game, being, 6 or 7 years old. I did my best, obviously, but I wasn't as good as probably most 7-year-olds, but I still had fun, good times. And then we have Pokemon Puzzle League Challenge, I think. Yeah, this box is in pretty rough condition, as you can kind of tell from the side. But that's okay. It was the only one that I'd seen yet. I've only seen one other one of these since then, but of course I had to pick this up when I had the chance because, as you guys know, I'm trying to collect all the Pokemon games, and this is one of the ones I was missing, so I picked it up. And one of my favorites in my collection, Pokemon GB Card 2. So this was a sequel to that Pokemon trading card game I showed you just earlier. But this one was only released in Japan, and it's actually quite expensive. I paid $175 for this. It's in basically really great condition, except for this small white nick on the side of the box here. The box itself has really retained its shape. It doesn't even seem to be any thumb marks on the top from being flipped open too many times. So I was super impressed with the quality, and I picked this up immediately. I got this in Osaka, and it was there for quite some time. I do remember seeing it the last time I visited. Basically beat myself up for not picking it up, so when I returned I was like, yeah, gotta get it. So I did. That was actually, I think I got this in one of the episodes. I don't know. Next up, okay, we have Pokemon Yellow. All you guys should know what this is. This is Pokemon, one of the biggest franchises on the planet, and this is well, I guess it's not the one that started it, because this is the sequel to the original parts that started the whole craze. So yeah, Pokemon Yellow. Then we have Pokemon Blue in really, really good condition. I'm really happy that I found this. I think this one was about $70 because blue is the most expensive out of the 3, or even of the 4, because this was the one that was meant to only be released in North America, I believe, but then it was released later on in Japan, because as you know, we got red and blue, whereas Japan got green and red. But yeah, Pokemon Blue. Next up, we got Pokemon Red, also in really good condition. Obviously, I'm really picky with my games. There's a little bit of some sort of scuffiness on the box or some sort of indentation, but it's the best of what I'd seen so far, so I figured I'd pick it up. And sorry about the gloss and the shine, but I have these all in protector cases, so because Game Boy is my main jam. And Pokemon Green. I think this is one of the first games I picked up while here. The condition's not too bad. This one's generally the cheapest because it's like version beta of Pokemon until it came out in North America, and then it came with some fixes, and then that's when Japan got blue. So this one is basically the first and the worst version of the entire set. But I still love it. I never had it growing up because, like I said, it's not in North America, so I picked it up as soon as I got the opportunity. We have Pokemon Gold. So this is, the condition is okay. There's some scuffing on the box. I bought this really, really early into my staying in Japan, and I just really wanted the Pokemon game, and I didn't realize how easy they are at the time to find. So I just jumped on it when I had the opportunity, but now I've seen tons and tons of them that are in really good condition. So now that I've taken note in my mind how this one looks, I will be getting another one eventually. And next up, we have Pokemon Silver. This is the first game I bought here in Japan, so as you can see, it's in pretty rough condition. Probably like a 6 out of 10 probably, but this was the very first game that I bought. Actually, it was alongside that Pokemon Yellow, and then I bought a Game Boy Color, and I was so basically flabbergasted. I was like, wait, you can just buy these games here in Japan at all these stores, and there's just tons of them, and like, what the heck? So I picked it up thinking it was like some crazy rare find, until, I've lived here a little bit now, that you can find these things for a dime a dozen, basically. But yeah, so this one I definitely need to find a better condition. And then after that, we have Pokemon Crystal. This is in really good condition. I'm very pleased with this. I bought this one quite recently. I don't know if I featured it in an episode. I think I did, but I bought it from the Mideo Nishiichi store, which is in Okayama City, not too far from, it's only 1 or 2 stops away from the main station, and we go there all the time. I love that store. And so I seen this, and it's in immaculate condition, so I had to, of course, get it when I had the opportunity. So Pokemon Crystal, probably my favorite game of all time, and my favorite Pokemon game of all time, so super happy to have this one. So this here, I have no idea what this is, this game here. It does say Kandume Monsters, so I'm guessing it's another, you know, monster training clone that you had seen pop up after the Pokemon craze. But this game had been sitting at that previously mentioned Mideo Nishiichi store for, I think it was like 480 yen. And it had been sitting there for ages, and the box is in really good condition, and I just kept passing up on it, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't need it, I don't know what it is, but eventually I was just like, well, it's still here, might as well get it, so yeah. And then we have Monster Farm, or Monster Rancher as we called it in Canada. I do know that we have Monster Rancher games in North America because I do vividly remember my friend playing one while I was playing Pokemon one time. As for what this one is, and it says battle card. Okay, so it's got to be some sort of card style game, possibly. Or maybe it uses cards in its battle system, similar to like a Dragon Ball Z game where it uses cards to do your attacks rather than just normal choosing your attacks. But I don't think it's a trading card game. Doesn't appear to be. There doesn't seem to be any hints on the artwork here that it's a trading card game, so if you guys want to take a look, I hope it focuses that close. Yeah, so I've never played this. I don't know what it is, but it's Monster Rancher, and it was one of the series I like to watch on TV, so I figured I'd pick it up. Next, we have Donkey Kong 2001. So this is basically just a remake on Game Boy Color of Donkey Kong Country, because we all know that these games are spectacular. I know Donkey Kong Land differs from the main series games, but as for this one, I'm not too sure if it's just a straight up complete remake, or if it's got some elements that aren't in the main games. I cannot tell you. But yeah, Donkey Kong 2001. And next up, we have Donkey Kong 3. This just says Donkey Kong GB. That'd take me a minute to read that, but I'm pretty sure it's just a straight remake of Donkey Kong 3, similar to what this one probably is. As for if there are any other elements that don't exist in the actual Donkey Kong Country 3, I could not tell you, as I have not played this yet, but it is Donkey Kong Country, and so I had to pick it up. And next we have Donkey Kong Land. So this looks like a Donkey Kong 2 remake, but I do know that Donkey Kong Land differs from the regular Donkey Kong series. This one I don't think has its instruction booklet. I don't think so, but I got it at Book Off for like 400 yen, and it was because it didn't have the book that it was so cheap. I haven't really seen much of them since, so I just figured I'd pick this up while I'd seen it. Then we have, let's just get all these 3 out. We have 3 Dragon Quest Monsters games. I don't know what the difference between these 2 are. I'm guessing these are 2 different versions of the same game, similar to Pokemon, and then this is just the sequel or the first. But we didn't get these games in North America, unfortunately, and then these were remade for the Nintendo 3DS. There are translations out actually, so I do want to give them a whirl for the 3DS because there are patched versions of them. So I think I'll be doing that near in the future because I haven't played Dragon Quest Monsters in about a year at this point, so I'd really love to check these out. Then we have another copy of Pokemon trading card game. This one is just the first one I found. It was $5. Box is in quite rough condition versus the other one, so this is again just the first one I'd picked up of that. And then same with this Pokemon Crystal. As you can see, it's got a line going down here. It's got quite a bit of scratches and scuffs. So this is the first version that I had purchased, but it was quite cheap. So like I said, I had found a different version that was in better condition, so I purchased it when I had the chance. Next up, we have Super Mario Picross. Again, like I mentioned, I never played Picross myself, so I don't know how it goes, but this was really cheap and it's in really decent condition, so I figured I'd pick it up. And finally, for Game Boy Color, I'm pretty sure this is it. And then we'll be moving on to Game Boy Advance, but hey, it's done by Banpresto. This company basically makes every single dang stuffy animal that you find in the crane machines. I always see that exact logo everywhere for Banpresto right here. As for this Dragon Ball game, I don't really know what it is. We did not get it in North America, and I also did not know it existed, but it does look like some sort of fun RPG, so I'm really tempted to look up a translation for this if it's possible, and then pop it into my Retro Freak console, because I do love Dragon Ball Z, and I'd love to give this a whirl if there's a way to do so. So yeah, Dragon Ball Z. Alright, so now we are moving into the Game Boy Advance territory. I just pulled out a handful of games, so we are going to start off with this, because it's the last thing I actually purchased, because I was at the store. I was at a store that we had never visited previously, so when I went there, and I was like, oh my gosh, they have lots of games, and I picked this up. It's just another Monster Rancher game, or as it's known, I guess, in Japan, it's Monster Farm. Again, I've never played this before, but because I do have the one on Game Boy Color, I figured I'd pick this up for Game Boy Advance. This was, I believe, $10, so not too bad, but it's in pretty good condition, all things considered. I have yet to put it in a sleeve, so I got to do that. Remind me. And then, next up, we have Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. I absolutely loved this game back in the day. I didn't own it myself, but I'd rented it from the video game store in my city like 4 or 5 times back to back. I tried to get every single Pokemon that you possibly could. And this was my first taste at what the Pokemon from Ruby and Sapphire would end up looking like, because I think this might have came out before Ruby and Sapphire, possibly. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. Actually, I think it might have come out after, but yeah, I never played Ruby and Sapphire before, but this was my first taste of the 3rd gen Pokemon. Next up, we have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team. So Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is a pretty loved side spin-off of the main Pokemon series, and this one basically lets you play in sort of a Final Fantasy Tactics style of gameplay where you move a square at a time and then your opponent also moves, and then you just basically use your attacks, learn your attacks, and etc, etc. But the one thing that was weird is that your Pokemon doesn't evolve until after you've completed the game, which is a bit of an annoyance, but there's 2 versions, one for DS and then one for Game Boy Advance. This is the Game Boy Advance version. Next up, Pokemon Leaf Green, also one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. Well, that alongside Pokemon Fire Red. These are getting excruciatingly expensive in North America, so I'm glad that I have the ones that I do here in Japan. I do really want to give these a whirl, but Japanese is quite hard, so... But I guess these ones would be a good place to start, especially if I'm trying to learn, since they only use, because it's a Pokemon game meant for younger people, usually only use hiragana and katakana, so I don't have to worry about kanjis, I just have to know how to speak. But yeah, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Oh, and then next up we got the big 3, Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. So as for box conditions, it's not the best, but you know, I really love these games and I just get them when I get the chance. A lot of these markings that you see, like right here, this is actually just from the outside of the box. It's from the condensation on my hand. So they're better looking than they appear in these cases, but these protectors are good because they keep the game safe. And then, of course, we have Pokemon Sapphire. I do have 2 of these. I have one that doesn't have the instruction manual, but it was like $12, weirdly cheaper than they usually were. So I picked that up. And then this one here is the better condition that is complete. There's a bit of wear and tear on the boxes, but that's okay because I love Pokemon. And then finally, Pokemon Emerald here. This is a really expensive game in North America. Just the cartridge cost me almost $200 in Canada, whereas this complete version cost me like $70 in Japan, which is absolutely atrocious. And this is actually the version that comes with the wireless transceiver. Actually, I have a couple of these, so if I ever wanted to trade, I am able to, so that is awesome. Pokemon Emerald. Okay, next batch. We have Donkey Kong Country 2. This is the Game Boy Advance remake. I'm pretty sure these are actually a bit different because I did play this a little bit on my Game Boy, but then I dropped my Game Boy, and then the game card slid out a little bit, so the game just basically lagged and then stopped working, so I was like, oh, I didn't save! But yeah, so these are different because I did try it out. This one is quite expensive. These are quite expensive in Japan, like ranging $30-ish nowadays, but I did pick this up at in Osaka, and I did make a video of that, so I'm pretty sure you guys seen it when I got this. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country 2. Next up, we have Mega Man Battle Network 3. I believe this one is white, if I remember correctly. I don't see the kanji for white anywhere, unless I am mistaken, but this is the first Mega Man Battle Network game that I played, and I absolutely loved it. These games are amazing, and they're so unique. They are really expensive in Japan. I'm lucky to have gotten this one for how much I did, because these are going up for upwards of $80. Some of these are more than Pokemon games, which is kind of absurd. And then there's even some unreleased DS versions that are also always in the glass case that we never got in North America and super expensive, but I'm glad I have this. I am going to get the rest as I come. These are probably the next on my hit list for the games I'm going to be collecting, as I've basically completed my Pokemon collection, so these will be next. And then we have, I don't actually know what this is. It looks similar to Yoshi's Story, Super Mario World 2 from Super Nintendo. Whether or not it's the same game or a sequel, I'm honestly not too sure, but it does look like there's some sort of multiplayer aspect to this game, as 1 and 4 makes you think 4 players. I could be totally wrong, but I kind of want to give this a whirl because I'm not too sure how this differs from Yoshi's Story, but I do love that game. I have it on Super Nintendo, as you guys have seen, for the Canadian version, and I do have my Canadian Super Nintendo, so I can plug that into the TV and play, which is super awesome. Next up, we have Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance. Again, just another straight up remake / port of the Super Nintendo. Or actually, it wouldn't be a port, it is remade because they don't share the same engine. But these ones are probably similar to number 2, how they have some different elements, like different collectibles and stuff like that. Oh yeah, it even says there's fishing and dancing, so these are definitely different from the main games. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country. Next up, we have this game here. I have no idea what this is, but I'm pretty sure I seen somebody mention it in an underrated gems video. This game was also really cheap. I think this one was 280 yen, and it had been sitting for quite some time, so eventually I decided to pick this up. I don't really know what it is. It looks to be like some sort of RPG, maybe some sort of Metabots-like game, or Mega Man Battle Network, because there are monsters in here. As for what they are, I have no idea, so I picked it up. Then we have boxed Super Mario Kart. I never really played this one on Game Boy Advance, just because it just never really piqued my interest. I was more interested in the console versions, but this is in pretty good condition, and this one was cheap while I was in Osaka, so I picked it up. Then next we have Dragon Ball Z. I think this is Supersonic Warriors. Yes, I believe so. This is a really fun game, and I actually had rented it. And like I mentioned, I was actually in foster care, but my foster mom rented me this game, and then they moved me homes right away. So I had this game for like 3 or 4 weeks after release, and then my social worker finally came to me in a different city. He's like, "Do you have this game?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I need it." And I was like, "Oh, crap." So I had to give it back, unfortunately. But yeah, this game is super fun. It's just basically a side-by-side fighting game. Pretty bare bones, but it's a lot of fun when you're younger. Okay, last batch of Game Boy Advance games incoming. Okay, so now we have Super Mario 2. I'm guessing this 2 refers to the second of the Game Boy Advance series, but this is just a remake of Super Mario World. Again, if it differs from the mainline Super Mario World game, I don't know, but I did play this for a little bit. I am like 1 or 2 worlds into this on my Game Boy version. It's in my Game Boy right now, actually, so yeah, fun game. Next up we have, oh yeah, this is, I think these are Sun and Moon or Blue and Red, I'm not too sure. But this is, I remember seeing the commercial for this. This is the commercial that I had initially seen that piqued my interest for Mega Man, because these 2 versions specifically were heavily marketed when they were released, and then I ended up stumbling upon the number 3. So yeah, I didn't play Red, I played the blue version of this, but super spectacular games that really did well building upon the ones beforehand. Next we have Yu-Gi-Oh! So this is number 7. There's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Games in Japan. But yeah, so this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Sacred Cards as we knew it in North America. It's basically just a trading card game version of just in video game format. But this was the first one that I remember that lets you actually walk around and engage with people rather than just doing arcade style, one battle, next battle, etc. So this was super fun. I had completed this game twice, I believe, as a kid. I'm not a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, so I don't think I'd ever go back to this, but I loved playing the card game back in the day, so this game was super fun for me. Next, we have Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors again. One of these I sat on. Oh yeah, this is the one I sat on. You can tell by this crease right here. There's a little crease. I sat on this because I'm an idiot. Yeah, so I just have 2 versions of this because this is the band Presto's Best. So this is similar to like a greatest hits version of Supersonic Warriors, as opposed to this one, which is just the regular version. This is, yeah. So I figured I'd grab the other one just so I have both. Next up we have this. I don't really know what this is. It's a Battle Network game, and as you can see there's a lot of damage from some sort of sticker that used to be right here. But remember how I mentioned there was a store that had a Mega Man game on GameCube and it was like an adult store? Well, this is another one of the games that they had sitting in the front for some reason, so I picked this up, and it was dirt cheap, and it was something like 1/10 of the price they usually go for, obviously because of this damage, but I picked it up just because I had never seen it before, and yeah, so I didn't have it. Next up, we have another copy of Pokemon Sapphire. This is the one I picked up at Book Off that I mentioned does not have the booklet, but it does have the cartridge, of course. So this is just my second version that I had first purchased. And then next up, we have Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku 2 International. It's funny that they label it International, but it's Japanese only, because usually it's the other way around, as Atari was owned by the US during the time of these games. So these games came out in America first, as American studios were making it, and then Japan got it as the international version, which is kind of funny. There is a rip on the back of the box, so I do need to get a new version. But this was actually a bit sneaky. I've never seen them do this before. This rip was underneath the book off sticker, which are usually, they rip off really easy, and it did. So this damage was here before the sticker, but they hit it and they didn't mark it down because of it. So I'm a little bit peeved about that, but I will get another one when the time comes. And finally, for Game Boy Advance, we have Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure. So I've never played this game, I don't think, but I did play the GT version, so I do want to give this a whirl. But this is Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure. It's basically a side-scrolling beat-em-up action game. I don't think it's like a normal RPG, but I would love to give this a whirl because I have not played it before. Yeah, awesome game, super good condition, glad to have it. Alright, so now we are onto the DS. So first things first, I'm going to show you guys these big box items that I have for DS. So this is a Pokemon typing adventure for black and white. This actually comes with a Bluetooth keyboard, which is absolutely hilarious. And I guess it teaches kids how to type. That's basically the purpose of it, but this is pretty cheap. This is only $50 complete in box, so I'm glad to have found this when I did. Next up, we have Ni no Kuni. This is a gigantic box here. Let's open this up. I've never actually seen inside. So Ni no Kuni is an RPG. Ooh, wow. Oh, cool. This is cool. It comes with a whole ass book. Information about the stuff that's in the games, I'm assuming. I've never actually opened this. I just know that it's Ni no Kuni and it was a big box. So I wanted to purchase it since I've seen a lot of them. Oh yeah, and here's the game. Huh, that's awesome. Sick. So Ni no Kuni is an RPG that is animated by the people behind the Ghibli films, actually. So it's got a lot of movie elements in the game, and I didn't know that it was out for the DS actually, but I do play the or I have played the version on the Switch. So it's a pretty amazing RPG style game. So if you haven't played this before, I strongly suggest it. First batch. So first we got Final Fantasy III. This is the remake of the Final Fantasy III for the DS. Sad story with this one actually is I got about 90% through the game and my brother asked to play and I was like, yeah, sure. And of course I thought to myself, okay, let me just erase my spare files first so you know which one to use. And of course thinking in my head, I'm like, that would be so awful if I accidentally erased my main file. And I did, and I actually cried. I think I was 14 actually, I was 14, and yes, I cried. Because I spent like 30 hours on this game, and then all of a sudden I lost all my files. So, fun game. If you haven't played this, I suggest doing so. Oh, and I did eventually go back and complete it, so that is good. Next up, we have Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2. This is the Ultimate Hits version. This is basically just a monster raising game that's in the vein of Dragon Quest. These are the ones I have played. And then next up, we have Dragon Quest Monsters Professional 2. Or Dragon Quest Monsters 2 Professional Edition. So this one just has more content, basically. These ones go for 40 or 50 bucks each, so I did pay a hefty price for this versus the super cheap $5 version, but this one does have a bunch of cool content and stuff, so that's why it's expensive. Next up, we have Dragon Quest Monsters Joker. This is the first one, so I did play this a lot as a kid, and it wasn't until recently, about 3 years ago, that I went back and I completed the entire game from beginning to end, which is both of these, and then the third one as well, but I had to find a patch. So yeah, these games are super awesome. If you have never played them, I strongly suggest it. They're lots of fun. Next up, we have, oh, what is this? Digimon Dawn and Dusk, I believe. So these are really, really fun games. Super underrated, and they were super overshadowed by Pokemon at the time, but these are basically just RPGs with Digimon. If you haven't played them, I strongly suggest it because they are awesome. And then next up, we have Digimon Story. I believe this is just another RPG. I think this one came out before. Let's check the dates. So I cannot find any dates, but yeah, so I think this game came out before these two. I could be totally wrong, so correct me in the comments if I am, but this is just another Digimon adventure. Super fun game. I strongly suggest checking it out. So we have Pokemon Heart Gold. So this is one of the ones that doesn't have the complete, but of course I have the complete edition with the Pokewalker, so don't doubt that. But this is just a loose copy that I happen to have in Japanese, so yeah. And then next up we have Pokemon White. So I don't have these in Japanese, I have all mine in English, except for Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But this one is 480 yen, which is a bit strange. These usually go for more than that, so I figured I'd pick it up when I found it, so yeah, good deal. Then we have the prologue to Death Note. So I have no idea what this is. I don't even know if this came out in North America. I don't remember. But of course, this is based on Death Note, and I absolutely loved the manga. I read the entire manga probably 10 times through my youth. So yeah, this is just a Death Note game. I figured pick it up because I was a fan of the series. Then we have Nintendogs. Wait, this is still wrapped? Oh, well, it's wrapped. Let's unbox it. Nice. Nintendogs. So yeah, this is basically one of most people's first DS games ever, as it was for me. This exact version was the one that I first played, I think. Or no, I can't remember which one I had, but the Shiba was the first dog that I picked, or the Akita. Yeah, so this is basically just Tamagotchi-style pet simulator where you basically take care of a dog, but with more elements than a Tamagotchi. Next up, we have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I can't remember which one this is. I think it's Explorers of Darkness. There's Explorers of Darkness, Explorers of Time, I believe. So yeah, this one's Explorers of Darkness, I'm pretty sure. I never played these ones. The only ones I played were the first series, but they were super good and I loved them. So I'd love to give these a whirl if I can ever find the English versions. Next up, we have Mega Man Pegasus. I believe this is one of the Battle Network games that we did get in North America. Because there were a form of 3DS ones, or sorry, regular DS ones that we did get. And I do remember seeing them on store shelves, but I never got the chance to actually play them myself. And I believe this is one of them, because there was 3. Pegasus, there was one with a lion, and then one with a dragon, I believe. So this was actually quite expensive, because like I mentioned, these Mega Man games go for quite a bit. Then next up, we have Phantasy Star Zero. The only reason I bought this game is because it was dirt cheap. I think it was 100 yen. It was at a SoftBank, actually, which is kind of strange. But I don't know what this game is, and I've never played it, but it was cheap, so I picked it up. And I'm pretty sure they are popular RPGs, so I'd love to give these a whirl if I was able to find them in English. Next up, we have Tetris DS. So I played the crap out of this when I was younger because this was one of the first early releases for the DS. When its console first releases, you just kind of play what you can get, and this was one of the games that I could get. And yeah, so Tetris DS, absolutely classic. Okay, so next up, we have Pokemon Diamond. So this one is in English because I do have most of my Pokemon games in English aside from my early ones. And this is just the 4th generation of Pokemon Diamond. I picked this up for $20, thankfully in 2016, right before the price spike. So now these go for way more than that. And then, of course, we have Pokemon Pearl, the sister game to Diamond and Pearl. Not much else to say. I got this one for $15, so again, I'm very happy I did get it when I did. And then Pokemon Platinum. Condition's a little bit rough. It's got some sort of indentation here on the box, as you can see. But thankfully these cases are replaceable, so I can just slide the paper out and put it in something else, no big deal. And I think this one doesn't have the manual. Yes, so this one doesn't have the manual, but I do have it in the American version, so I'm happy about that. I will get a manual in the future. And then we have the Japanese Pokemon Soul Silver and Pokemon Heart Gold in their big box edition. So the Soul Silver one is in pretty rough condition, and the Pokewalker itself is in just atrocious condition, but it was not marked on the packaging, unfortunately. But I did pick it up when I found it because it took a while before I came across one. Although it's funny, because as soon as I did get it, that's when I started seeing more of them, despite always being on the lookout for them. So that's unfortunate, but I do have it, so I'm happy. And then this one is Heart Gold. This one is in immaculate condition. There's a bit of, wear and tear on the edge here, but the box itself is in super sturdy condition, and it has a Pokewalker that was never used. It still had the piece of tape in there covering the battery, so I'm very glad that I have this. Next up, we have Pokemon Black and White. So these are my North American versions as well. I got this one for $19 and this one for $15. So again, this was in 2016 before the big price boom. Now these can go for like $80 each, which is hilarious and totally atrocious. And then we have Black and White 2. These ones are really expensive. I've seen people selling these for $200 a piece, which absolutely blew my mind considering I paid $25 for this, and I don't remember how much I got this one for. Again, this one has a bit of a notch on the box here, but that's okay. It's always replaceable. But yeah, glad to have these. Okay, next up, we have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of the Sky, I believe this one is. This is one of the more expensive games, actually, that in Japan, the usual ones usually go for $35, which is quite expensive in terms of the standards for prices here, but I'm glad I have it. I never played this one, unfortunately. Then we have this strange Pokemon spin-off with, I can't remember what RPG it is, but it's a tactic-style game that combines like these samurai warriors and then the Pokemon in the battles. I've never played it, and I think this was released only in Japan. I could be wrong, but I picked it up because I'd seen it. I was like, okay, this is absurd. I love it. Then we have Pokemon Explorers of, I think this one's Explorers of Time. I'm not too sure because like I mentioned, there's two. And yeah, that's right. I have two of these. And if you're wondering why, it's because I found this one for 100 yen. So I was like, okay, that's a buck. Might as well pick it up. I mean, that's less than the soda at the vending machine, so this can retain its value in the future. So yeah, Mystery Dungeon games, absolute classics. Then we have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. This is the one I played growing up. And I beat the game, and then I ended up failing the like 100 floor dungeon or something like that at the very end, and I like got really pissed off when I stopped playing. But Leia actually went back and recently completed the Mystery Dungeon DX right to the end, so that's awesome. Then we have Pokemon Rangers. I think this one is Shadows of Almia, and then this one is the original Pokemon Rangers. These ones, it does have a cult following, but I did not find these interesting in my opinion, but that was just me. But of course, because it's Pokemon, I do have to collect them. And then we have Pokemon Typing Adventure, but this is the one that is just alone. I got this one for like 100 yen as well. I do have the big box, and then I do have a loose copy, so that is awesome. Then we have Pokemon Trozei. This is some sort of Pokemon puzzle game. This came out before Diamond and Pearl, so this is one of the first Pokemon tastes we got on the DS when it came out, so yeah, glad to have this. And then Pokemon Dash, the game responsible for people destroying their screens because you had to go with the stylus in order to win, which is pretty hilarious. The game is pretty poor, but I think this was the first or the second game for DS that came out that was Pokemon. One of these is the first, one of them is the second. But yeah, never played this myself because I just wasn't interested in the racing, but once Diamond and Pearl came around, yeah, of course I was into that. Next batch of games. This is Bleach. I don't know what this is exactly. I love Bleach, the anime. I did recently go back and start watching it, but I have to continue where I left off. But I thought it was funny because there's a 3,000 yen sticker on it despite paying like 480 for the game or like 280 or something. I did pick this up in one of my book off. Actually, I think it was in the very last episode I recorded of my retro game hunting series. So you probably remember seeing this. Bleach. Next up, we have the same game that I bought two of, unfortunately, but this was just because I was stupid and I did not know that I had this already, so stupid me. Next up, we have Metroid Prime Hunters, probably one of my favorite DS games of all time. My brother and me used to play this on DS Download Play, so we only needed one copy to play the multiplayer together. But then, of course, there was, I think, a deeper multiplayer if you both had the same copy. And yeah, super fun game. I really wish that this could have been in English. But if I ever do find an English version of the game, when I do find it, I am going to play it. Next up, we have Wario. So this is WarioWare Touched, I believe. So this is a bookless version, as this was really cheap. This was like $1. And this is just another one of those games which a bunch of with a bunch of really strange mini games that involve like plucking hairs and ripping off band-aids, etc. I did play it a lot as a kid, so I seen it, figured I'd pick it up. Next up, we have Nintendogs with a really bad sticker that has yet to come off. This is Chihuahua and Friends, I'm pretty sure. So this is a Nintendogs game. These are always really cheap. I usually find these for $250, $280 yen, so I get them when I see them. Then next up, we have Super Mario Party DS. I never played these games because, again, I wasn't really into Mario Party after the N64 era, but it was 300 yen, so I figured I'd pick it up when I did. Next up, we have this Dragon Ball Z game. I believe this was the first Dragon Ball Z game that came out on the DS. It is some sort of card game that involves RPG elements. I've never played it before, but I did see this all the time back when I was obviously at EB Games and GameStops and all that stuff, so I never got to play it, but maybe one day. Then we have this Dr. Slump game. So if you guys don't know, this is one of the series that Akira Toriyama made before he made Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And it follows this girl who's basically a robot that's built by this guy, and they just live in a ridiculous town and they get up to ridiculous antics. And I had no idea that there was a video game of it. I've never seen this in my life, nor have I ever heard of it. But I was at a book off once, or sorry, no, I was at Hard Off, and I seen this for like $10, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta get this because I was a big fan of the manga, so yeah. And then we have Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans, a massively underrated RPG for the DS. I played this game right from start to finish in just in one day, or 1 or 2 days, I believe. But I absolutely adore this game, and I really wish they followed it up with another, because this only goes from the beginning of Dragon Ball Z until the final fight with Vegeta, but it uses a lot of content in between in order to stretch that game out for like multiple hours. Super fun, super intuitive, and I really wish they followed up on this. Then we have Super Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, I think this is. I'm not too sure. I never played these games growing up, unfortunately, but I do know that they're really well-loved RPGs, so I would love to give these a whirl if I can find them in English. Next up, we have Dragon Ball Origins 2 and Dragon Ball Origins 1. Both of these games I did have, but I never ended up completing them. Next up, we have Dragon Ball Origins 1 and 2. I did have these growing up, but I never completed them. As to why, I have no idea. I just didn't seem interested in them at the time. But looking back at it, these games are awesome, and I don't know why I didn't bother to play them. But yeah, so I'd love to get these in English and play them, but they're quite expensive. Next up, we have a Dragon Ball Z game that I bought twice because, again, I'm stupid and totally forget what I have, so I gotta really start making a catalog. And then next up, we have this Dragon Ball Z game. This one, I believe, is Supersonic Warriors 2, but it is a Dragon Ball Z game for DS, so of course I didn't have it, I had to pick it up. Then we have Super Mario Bros., the new Super Mario Bros. So I have played this from start to finish a couple times when I was younger. These are super fun. I'm pretty sure they came with a bunch of minigames just as similar as the Super Mario 64. But yeah, this was only like 280 yen, so I figured I'd pick it up while I see it for cheap. So yeah, new Super Mario Bros. Then we have Dragon Quest IX. These games usually go for over $20, but I seen this at a book off for $5 right next to other ones that were for $20, so I don't understand why it was so cheap. My guess is that it was really old inventory that had been sitting so long that they marked it down to get rid of, so I picked this up. Awesome. Next up, we have another Digimon story game. I have not played this one, but Digimon Story and Digimon RPGs are always fantastic, so I definitely want to give this a whirl if I can find it in English. Next up, we have The Legend of Zelda. I don't know if this is in Spirit Tracks. Spirit Tracks is the one of the train, but there are 2 Zelda games that are on the DS that I have not played before, but Phantom Hourglass, that's what this one is, Phantom Hourglass. So these games are really good. They're technically spiritual successors to Wind Waker, I believe, and you can tell by the Link style. So, awesome, Zelda. Next up, we have The Legend of Zelda. This is the Spirit Tracks. This is the other one. This is another spiritual successor. I don't know which one is the first, which one's the second, but these are sequels of each other. Yeah, Zelda. Cool. Next up, we have the DS browser for DS, and unfortunately, it does not have the memory expansion pack. I did have this in Canada, and I did use this to like browse the internet and go on Facebook a long time ago, or not even Facebook, because Facebook wasn't really around when this was. But there was like websites like Nexopia and stuff I used, which are just other forms of social media before the Facebook craze. So I used this, and this was only 100 yen, so I figured I'd just say screw it and pick it up, despite not having the expansion pack. If I can find it, I'll get it. Next up, we have Super Mario 64 DS. So you might be able to tell, but this is actually a printed out case, mainly because I found this game loose for like $5. Oops, I have this sitting in one of my systems, but Yeah, so Super Mario 64, it's just basically a DS remake that gave you access to play more characters than the original one. It is a little bit hindered by the fact that you had to use a directional pad for what feels like should be analog stick movement, but they did a good job of this. This is awesome. Next up, we have a Yoshi game for the DS. As for what this is, I don't know. I've seen it a few times here in Japan, and whether or not it's come out in North America, I'm not too sure. But it does look like another Yoshi story game, so whether or not it is a sequel or a remake, I could not tell you, but I'm definitely interested to try this out. So if I can ever find it in English, I would love to play this. And next up, we have Donkey Kong Country. I've never played this, but this is a strange Donkey Kong game where you basically go along these little pegs and you climb up like left and right, left and right. I don't really know how the gameplay works, but I did watch a review on this not too long ago. It's a very underrated, kind of unique game, but also very boring and not too much to it. I've never played it before, but not particularly interested, but I picked it up because it's Donkey Kong. And then, oh, I guess this is last. So this is my other loose copy of Pokemon Soul Silver. Actually, you know what? This might be a good giveaway for another video. I can pick up a Heart Gold and Soul Silver complete with their Pokewalkers and then send them to a couple people. I don't know. Maybe we'll see in the future. So if you're this far into the video and you're listening to me, let me know if that's something you'd be interested in for the next milestone, say 2,500 subscribers. I send one copy out of both Soul Silver and Heart Gold to whoever wins. Yeah, but I guess that is really it. So thanks for watching. Let's jump to the intro. Yeah, so I guess that is it for today's video. So if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of my collection, and let me know if there's any suggestions of games you'd like me to pick up. I finished my main collection, which is Pokemon on the handheld. However, I'm still always looking out for other games. So if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, I guess that's really about it. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.